Hello everyone. Welcome you all to Sri Jaindra Rank Zone classes. I am your mentor and your friend for the subject biology, and I will be teaching with the zoology part, that is animal science. My dear students, today we are going to start with a very important topic of human physiology, that is locomotion and movement. Under this section, we will be studying about different types of bones, joints, different components of vertebral column. We will also study with how these joints work, types of joints. We will also study about the muscles and their movement. So when we start with locomotion and movement, there is a basic difference between locomotion and movement. Okay. So first I will start with differentiating the terms locomotion and movement. The term locomotion is basically a subject given for unicellular and multicellular organisms when they change their respective position. Mean when the whole organism is changing its position, then it is locomotion. And movement, so movement is change in position within organism, mean inside organism, like movement of movement of water in unicellular organisms in the form of cytoplasmic streaming, amoeboid movement. It is not called locomotion. It is a movement. Okay. So amoeboid movement with the help of pseudopodia, for example, amoeboid mean amoeba and the amoeboid cells like WBC. Ciliary movement, flagellar movement, they all are movements. Okay. Paramecium, sperm, they all undergo with the help of these movements. Okay. Muscular movements with the help of muscular tissues. Okay. So movement, it can lead to locomotion. Locomotion is a broad term, okay, which involves movement of different body parts. Study of bone structure and the treatment of bone disorder is known as what? Osteology. The study of bone structure and treatment of bone disorder is known as what? Osteology. The specialized branch of medicine that deals with the preservation and restoration of skeletal system, joints is called orthopedics. A specialized branch of medicine that deals with the preservation and restoration of skeletal system and joints is known as what? Orthopedics. Okay. Bones are made up of protein called osine and cartilage is made up of chondrin. Hence, study of bones is osteology and study of cartilage is chondrology. Bones of animals, that is vertebrates especially, is supported by skeleton. Okay. The hardened tissue of the body together form the skeleton, that is sclero means hard. The skeleton of invertebrates is most often secreted on the surface, forming a lifeless or dead exoskeleton, whereas skeleton of vertebrates develops most often underneath the surface, forming a living or growing endoskeleton. Three types of skeletons develop in vertebrates. So skeleton simply means a hardened tissue. In invertebrates, it is laid over the skin, forming a lifeless or dead exoskeleton, whereas skeleton of vertebrates develops most often underneath the surface, forming a living or growing endoskeleton. Three types of skeletons develop in vertebrates: epidermal or horny exoskeleton. These include hard and horny keratinized derivatives of epidermal layer of skin, such as claws, most reptilian scales, bird feathers, and mammalian hairs, horns, nails, and hoofs. All living amphibians lack an exoskeleton. All living amphibians lacks exoskeleton. So epidermal or horny exoskeleton, it include hard and horny keratinized derivatives of epidermal layer of skin, such as claws, most reptilian scales, bird feathers and mammalian hairs, hooves, horns and nails. All living amphibians, they don't have exoskeleton. The amphibians, living amphibians, they don't have exoskeleton. Then comes dermal or bony skeleton. Dermal or bony skeleton is derived from the dermis of skin. It includes bony scales and plates or scutes, that is osteodermis, fin rays and antlers of fishes, some reptiles like crocodiles, turtles and tortoises, and mammals. So dermal or bony skeleton is basically derived from the dermis of skin. It includes bony scales and plates or scutes, which is known as what? Osteodermis, like fin rays and antlers of fishes, some mammals, some of the reptiles like crocodiles, turtle and tortoises. In fishes, dermal scales become exposed to due to wearing out of epidermis and forms exoskeleton. In fishes, the dermal scales they become exposed due to wearing out of the epidermis and forms exoskeleton. So exoskeleton in fishes is dermal or bony. Okay. Amphibians they don't have exoskeleton. Okay. Reptiles, birds, feathers, and mammalian hairs they are epidermal or horny exoskeleton. So dermal or bony skeleton is in fishes, epidermal and horny exoskeleton except amphibians. Okay. Endoskeleton. Greater part of the vertebrate's skeleton lies more deeply, forming endoskeleton. It develops from mesenchyme. The endoskeleton is formed by bones in vertebrates. Skeleton in different animals are follows. Okay. Like invertebrate, when we talk about invertebrate, whether they have endoskeleton or not, whether they have endo or exoskeleton or not. So endoskeleton is different from exoskeleton. It is made up of mesenchyme. It basically forms bones in vertebrates. The exoskeleton is dermal or bony. Okay, dermal, epidermal or bony. Okay. Protozoa, they don't have any skeleton, whether exo or endo. Porifera, they have calcareous spicules, siliceous spicules, and spongin fibers in mesenchyme. Spicules in Porifera represent endoskeleton. Coelenterate, calcareous, that is corals, and chitinous, that is perisarc. Helminth, no skeleton, cuticle is present. Annelid, no skeleton, cuticle is present. In earthworm and ascaris, they show hydrostatic skeleton, which is found that is fluid is filled in the coelom and forms turgid skeleton. So in annelids, earthworm and ascaris, annelids and helminths, especially the worms, roundworms and the flatworms, they have hydrostatic skeleton. Coelentrates, they have like for example corals, calcareous and chitinous perisarc represent endoskeleton. Porifera, spicules, they also represent endoskeleton. Orthopod, they have dead chitinous exoskeleton, shed at intervals called echidesis or molting. Cuticle is made up of non-chitinous outer epicuticle and chitinous inner endocuticle. Mollusk, they have calcareous shell, maybe external or internal or absent. Echinodermata, they have dermal calcareous plates, which represents exoskeleton, exoskeleton, exoskeleton. Hemichordates, they have endoskeleton in the form of proboscis, okay, and protochordates. In vertebrates, exoskeleton may be epidermal or dermal. In vertebrates, it can be epidermal or dermal. Vertebrates. In vertebrates, dermal skeleton is formed by bones. Bone is the connective tissue with intercellular spaces filled with osine matrix composed of 25% water, 25% protein fibers, and 50% mineral salts. The innermost region is full of bone marrow, having various types of cells. In mammals, the bone is full of Haversian canals, and the bones are of following types. So in case of vertebrates, the endoskeleton is basically made up of the bones. In vertebrates, dermal skeleton or bony skeleton is found. Okay. The epidermal or horny skeleton, it is basically found in, not found in amphibians, and it is found in reptiles, birds, feathers, and mammalian hairs and horns. Okay. So first is the cartilaginous bones, the bones which are formed by the ossification of pre-existing cartilage. I mean the moment baby is born, they have a skeleton made up of cartilage. Then cartilage undergoes the deposition of calcium salts, calcium and phosphate salts. Okay, and the protein osine, which causes the calcification of these cartilaginous bones. Okay, so ossification or the calcification of these cartilaginous bones, okay, they are also known as replacing bones like vertebrae, girdles, pectoral and pelvic, okay, limb bones, basioccipital, supraoccipital, sphenoid process, incus in ear, malleus and stapes. So you have to remember incus, malleus, stapes, girdles and vertebrae. Okay, they have cartilaginous bones. Membranous or dermal bones, the bones which are formed by the independent ossification and connective tissue called dermal or membranous bones or investing bones, like ribs, sternum, clavicle, nasal bone, vomer, palatine, and maxilla. So palatine bone, maxilla, vomer, nasal, clavicle, sternum, and ribs, they are dermal or membranous bones. Sesamoid bones, the ossification takes place on the ligament, okay, like bone of rabbit, and tendons like patella in pisiform. Sesamoid bones, example, patella in pisiform, membranous bone, example, ribs, clavicle, sternum, nasal, vomer, palatine, and maxilla. The basic difference between cartilaginous bones is cartilage undergoes ossification like vertebrae, girdles, malleus incus stapes, membranous or dermal bones, ribs, sternum, clavicle, nasal, vomer, palatine, maxilla. Sesamoid bones, example, patella and pisiform. Okay. Pneumatic bones. Bones with hollow spaces containing air like bones of bird, frontal bone in humans, sphenoid bone, ethmoid bone, maxilla of human. Okay. So pneumatic bones like bones of bird, like frontal pneumatic bones, they are filled with basically air or air cavities like bones of bird, frontal bone, sphenoid bone, ethmoid bone, and maxilla. In case of humans, they are pneumatic bones. Okay. Irregular bones, vertebrae are irregular bones. They don't have a regular shape. Vertebrae are irregular bones. Flat bones, cranial bone, scapula and ribs, they are flat bones. Short bones, carpals and tarsals, they are short bones. Functions of endoskeleton. Chief function of vertebrate endoskeleton can be enumerated as follows. To provide physical support to body by forming a firm and rigid internal framework. Very important. To provide a physical support to the body, forming a firm and rigid internal network. To give definite body shape and form, to protect by surrounding delicate internal organs like brain, heart, and lungs. Okay, so they give protection to delicate organs. They provide a definite body shape. Okay, they provide a physical support to body by forming a firm and rigid internal framework to permit growth of huge body size like whale, elephant, extinct dinosaurs since it is living and growing. To provide surface for the attachment of muscles, to serve as levers on which muscles can act, to manufacture blood corpuscles in bone marrow, and to help in breathing like tracheal rings and ribs. So they are the functions, possible functions. I mean, there are many more functions. Now, the endoskeleton of vertebrates. So endoskeleton of vertebrates is basically functions are done. Endoskeleton of vertebrates on the basis of position of skeletal structures in the body. The endoskeleton is divided into two parts. One is axial exoskeleton and the other one is appendicular. First is axial, second is appendicular. Okay. Now, axial skeleton, it is present on the median longitudinal axis of the body. The axial skeleton, it occupies the main longitudinal axis of the body. It includes four structure: skull in the head, vertebral column in the neck, trunk and tail if present, sternum and ribs in the thoracic cage. It forms upright axis of the body and includes 80 in humans and 87 in children. Okay, 80 in adults and 87 in children. Bones are as follows in men. Okay. So axial skeleton is basically including, it includes the bones which lies on the longitudinal medial longitudinal axis. It includes four structures. First is skull, then the second is thorax, okay, like sternum and ribs in the thorax, then trunk and tail, okay, and vertebral column, okay, if present. In case of children, it is 87 in number, while in case of adults, it is 18 number. It helps to maintain the correct posture. Now, skeleton is divided into axial skeleton and appendicular skeleton. Axial skeleton, skull, vertebral column, sternum, and ribs. Skull is further divided into cranium, which is most important, cranium, facial regions, optic capsules, auditory capsules, also known as otic capsules, olfactory capsules, and visceral part. The vertebral column includes cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral, caudal, or coccygeal. Appendicular skeleton, it includes girdles, pectoral and pelvic, limb bones, bone of forelimbs, bone of hind limbs. Forelimbs, upper arm, forearm, wrist, palm bones and phalanges. Thigh, shank, ankle bone, foot bones and phalanges. Okay. So these are the bones of forelimb and hind limb. Okay. Like upper arm, forearm, wrist bone, palm bones and phalanges, and thigh bone, then shank bone, then ankle bone, foot bones and phalanges. Okay. So it is present on the medial longitudinal axis of the body. It consists of skull, vertebral column, sternum and ribs. Axial and appendicular includes all these. Okay. This is the picture in which you can see skull. Skull is the showing cranial portion, and the other one is facial portion. Okay. Then these are the girdles, pectoral girdle, attached with clavicle, scapula. Thorax is having sternum, ribs, upper limb extremity, humerus, ulna, radius, carpals, phalanges. In lower limb, femur, patella, tibia, fibula, tarsals, metatarsals, and phalanges. Okay, these are metacarpals, pelvic or hip bone, and vertebral column. So all these are the different differentiating structures. Human skeleton, I have given you the anterior view. With the help of this anterior view, you can just a picture that how the human skeletal system looks like. Okay. Now starting from skull. Skeleton of head is called skull. Skeleton of head is called skull. Okay. So what we have studied yet, the most important is functions of skeleton, then the classification of skeleton. Okay. These are the functions of skeleton. Types of bones: cartilaginous bones, sesamoid bones, and membranodermal bones. Okay. This is very important, that which organism in the primitive invertebrates were having exoskeleton, endoskeleton, or no skeleton. Okay. Now coming to next. Bones of skull. The skeleton of the head is called skull. The skull rests upon the upper end of the vertebral column, and its bony structure consists of following parts. The bones of cranium are: the cranium is made up of 8 bones, facial bones are 14, and ear ossicles are 6. Okay, so there are around 28 skull bones. Hyoid bone 1, vertebrae 26, in children 33, sternum 1, ribs 24. So these are the overall pictures. First is the bones of skull, that is cranium, face and ear ossicle. Cranium is 8, face contains 14 bones, and ear ossicle contains 6 bones. Okay, then comes the other bones like hyoid bone, vertebral column, just 26 in adults, and children 33. Sternum, okay, they have sternum and ribs. Now, skull or general structure. It is the anterior-most part of the axial skeleton. It is divided into two main parts: chondrocranium and splenchocranium. Chondrocranium is formed by brain box or cranium proper, two sense capsules, orbit or optic capsule, eye, and auditory or otic capsules, ear. Okay. So chondrocranium, it basically is formed by the brain box or cranium proper, then two sense capsules, optic capsules and otic capsule. Otic capsule for auditory functions and optic capsules for vision. Cranium proper, it is strong, from bony box, very important. It is the brain box or bony box with a helmet-like covering over the brain called vault of skull, and a relatively thicker and stronger floor of the base upon which the brain rests. Its cavity is called cranial cavity. Since size of the cranial cavity is average around 1475 cubic centimeters, 1475 ml is the brain capacity or the size in adult men. It about the middle of the floor of the cranium, there is a large opening of cranial cavity called foramen magnum. The brain is connected to the spinal cord at this foramen. Cranium proper of mammal has following distinct zones. So the bones of cranium I will write down. Bones of cranium. Just give me. Bones of cranium. The cranium is formed by 8 bones. In which one is frontal bone, 2 parietal bones, number is 2, number is 1, 3 temporal bones, occipital bone, okay, and sphenoid bone. Ethmoid bone. So 2 plus 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So these are the bones: frontal bone, parietal bones, temporal bone, occipital bone, sphenoid bone, and ethmoid bone. Temporal bone, it is having a projection called mastoid process. So temporal bone, it is basically having a projection. This projection is known as what? Mastoid process. Okay. It resembles a breast shape. That is why it is given the name mastos. Mastos means breast. Okay. The cranial cavity in which the brain is kept, it opens posteriorly with the help of foramen magnum, already explained. The brain is connected to spinal cord at this foramen, already explained. Okay. So these are cranial bones: frontal, parietal, occipital, temporal, sphenoid, and ethmoid bones. Okay. Now comes ear ossicles. They are present six. There are 6 ear ossicles: 2 malleus, 2 incus, and 2 stapes. Okay. Hyoid bone. Hyoid bone is situated at the anterior wall of the upper part of the throat, just above the larynx. Voice box, larynx. Okay. It is not a bone of the skull proper. It is customarily considered with its that portion of the skeleton. It serves as a point of attachment for some of the muscles of the tongue and floor of the mouth, but does not articulate with any other bone. Okay. So hyoid bone is not a bone of cranium proper. Okay. The mandibular arch, which basically consists of palato, pterygoquadrate, and Meckel's cartilage. This term you have to remember. Okay, no need to remember this. Okay, Meckel's cartilage, which forms lower jaw. Very important. Meckel's cartilage. Just the names of just the name. Okay. Upper jaw is further divided into premaxilla, maxilla, palatine, pterygoid, and jugal. And Meckel's cartilage forms lower jaw, which further divided into angular, articular, dentary, splenial, supraangular, and coronal. Now the bones of face. 14 bones in the face, 2 zygomatic bones, 2 maxilla, 2 nasal bones, 2 lacrimal bones, 1 vomer, 2 palatine bones, 2 inferior nasal conchae, or terminated bones, and 1 mandible. Bones of face includes 2 zygomatic bones, 2 maxilla, 2 nasal bones, 2 lacrimal bones, 1 vomer, 2 palatine bones, 2 inferior nasal conchae, and 1 is mandible. So the skull consists of total 29 bones. Okay. At the posterior end of the cranium, there are 2 rounded protuberance, occipital condyle, which articulate with the first vertebrae, that is atlas. Okay. It means human skull is dicondyle. No need to go through. No need to go through. Okay. Yeah. Just I'll write here. Dicondyle. Okay. Frontal bone, parietal, temporal, occipital. Okay. Sphenoid, ethmoid, face, lacrimal, nasal, eye orbit, malar, that is zygomatic, coronoid process. Okay. Bones of cranium. Frontal bone, parietal bone, occipital bone, temporal bone, sphenoid bone, 1. Ethmoid bone, 1. So sphenoid, ethmoid, and occipital bone, they all are 1 in number. Okay. Bones of skull. Nasal bone, 2. Inferior nasal conchae, vomer, lacrimal, zygomatic, palatine, maxilla, and mandible. Already discussed. Now, functions of skull. First of all, we will discuss function of skull. What are the probable functions of skull? Okay. Now, most important function of the skull is to protect the brain. They have jaws, for mastication. It also help to protect and support the spatial sense organs. Okay. Okay. This function is carried out by nasal cum auditory capsules and orbits. Okay. Help to protect spatial sense organs. The skull also provides the rigid wall of the respiratory passage through which air is inhaled into the lungs. The hyoid apparatus protects and supports the throat. Now comes vertebral column. It is our backbone which extends in the mid-axis of the back, posterior part of the trunk from head to the lower, that is inferior extremity of trunk. Together with sternum and rib, it forms the supporting frame word of our trunk. It supports and rotates the head, suspends the viscera, protects vital organs, provides attachment to limb girdles, facilitates some movement of the trunk and houses of the spinal cord. The vertebral column makes 2/5 of the total weight of the body. The length of the human vertebral column is 71 centimeter, that is 28 inches. In adult male, it is around 61 centimeter, that is 24 meters. Okay, 61 centimeter, that is 24 meters in an average adult female. The vertebral column is about 71 centimeter long. Okay, 71 centimeter long. Okay, it is curved line in the mid dorsal line of the neck and trunk. It is made up of 33 vertebrae in case of 33 vertebrae. Okay. However, it consists of 26 bones because 5 sacral vertebrae are fused to form one sacrum and 4 coccyx vertebrae are fused to form one coccyx. The components of the vertebral column are called vertebrae or singular vertebra. Okay. The curvature of the vertebral column in the fetus, there is only a single anterior concave surface. In adult, there are 4 curves like cervical, thoracic, lumbar, and sacral. Cervical and lumbar are anteriorly convex, they are convex anteriorly, while thoracic and sacral they are anteriorly concave. Okay. So cervical and lumbar they are anteriorly convex, while thoracic and sacral they are anteriorly concave. At approximately third month after birth, when an infant begins to hold his head erect, cervical curves develop. Later, when the child sits up, stand, walk, lumbar curves develop. The thoracic and sacral curves retain anterior concavity of the fetus. They are called primary curves. They are known as what? Primary curves. The cervical and lumbar curves are modification of original fetal curves. They are known as what? Secondary curves. So primary curves are basically found in thoracic and sacral regions. Okay. While cervical and lumbar they are known as what? Secondary curves. Okay. So cervical and lumbar they have secondary curves. Okay, thoracic and sacral curves they are the primary curves. This is the curvature you can see. This is the curvature. Okay, this is cervical curve formed by 7 cervical vertebrae. Thoracic curve C7, T12, L5, S5, C1. 12 plus 7, 19. 19 plus 1, 20, 20, and 10, 30. So around 30, 31 vertebrae are present in case of humans. Okay. Overall 33 vertebrae are present, but 26 bones. Okay, because 5 vertebrae they fuse to form one sacrum. What are the features common to most vertebrae? A typical or generalized vertebrae. Okay. Typical vertebrae. Very important. Typical vertebrae. Or which is generalized vertebrae. Okay. This typical vertebrae has large disc-like anterior and flattened portion known as centrum or body. Okay. So I think the diseases we will be discussing. Yeah. This is the structure of typical vertebrae. So a typical vertebrae basically basically contains centrum or body, and a posterior portion called neural arc. It arises from the dorsal side of the centrum and encloses a neural canal for the spinal cord. The arch may be produced into the dorsal process पीछे की तरफ at the back. The neural spine, which may be elongated, pointed, or flattened, and directed upwards or backwards. Okay, you can see. Suppose this is the vertebrae. This process is the neural arc. Transverse process. There are lateral extensions of the neural arc and centrum. There may be two types of these processes: more dorsal dipophysis arising from the base of the neural arc and lateral parapophysis. Okay, no need to remember. No need to remember. Okay. So dipophysis, parapophysis, these are the lateral extensions of the centrum or the body. Okay. Now, the later there is the neural arc which encloses the spinal cord and having a foramen or a hole, okay, which is known as what? Vertebral column or vertebral foramen. The vertebral foramen of all 24 vertebrae forms the vertebral canal or neural canal. Vertebral canal or neural canal. Each neural arc is formed by two processes of the centrum. One is the pedicel and the two are the lamina. Okay. One is pedicel and two are lamina. Yeah. One is the pedicel and lamina are two. Okay. The spinous process of the neural spine is found projecting dorsally. Six other processes originate on the neural arc, that is superior articular process, inferior articular process, superior articular, inferior articular, transverse process, the centrum of the human vertebrae is acaelous or amphiplaten type. Very important. The part of the vertebrae attached to the second by centrum. Okay. On the basis of centrum, vertebrae may be. So we humans have acaelous vertebrae, also known as amphiplaten. No cavity in the centrum. No centrum is flat. Okay. So centrum is flat and there is no cavity. Because of having no cavity, the centrum is flat. Example are mammals, man and rabbit. Okay. Acaelous vertebrae. The vertebrae are grouped into 5 groups: cervical vertebrae, thoracic, lumbar, sacral, and coccyx. This is the hypothetical picture of a vertebrae. Okay, you can see the neural canal. Okay, this is a neural spine. Okay, projecting at the dorsal backward side and upwards. Okay, this is the anterior most portion. This is the centrum or the body. These are the tubercular process of the ribs which attaches to the spine. Okay, so these are the types. This is basically in mammals like humans and okay. Man and rabbit, humans and rabbit. Atlas vertebrae. Okay, atlas is the first vertebrae. Okay, then the second cervical vertebrae is axis. The atlas, it is the first cervical vertebrae. It is formed of vertebral arch, transverse process. It supports the globe of the head like Earth by the atlas. Centrum is absent in atlas vertebrae. Neural spine is absent in atlas vertebrae. Transverse processes are long with transverse foramina. Okay. So the first cervical vertebrae is the atlas vertebrae, no centrum, no neural spine. The transverse processes are long with transverse foramen. Okay. They have body which is formed of vertebral arch transverse process. Okay. It supports the globe of the head like Earth by the atlas. Okay, Superman. Atlas is compared to a Superman which basically helps to support the Earth. Axis vertebrae, which is the second cervical vertebrae. Okay. Its centrum is acaelous type. it is having a odontoid process or a dense. Okay, so dense or odontoid process is the remarkable feature of second cervical vertebrae, that is axis, which is the modified centrum of the atlas. It is having a pivot joint. Pivot type of joint is pivot for rotation of atlas and head around the odontoid process. Transverse processes are small. In case of axis vertebrae, transverse processes are long and pointed, while in case of axis vertebrae, transverse processes are small, and it is having a pivot joint for rotation of atlas and head around the odontoid process. Cervical vertebrae, it is having a long neural spine. The centrum is acellus. Transverse processes are large. Vertebral canal present. Vertebral canal is also known as foramen transverse area. So typical cervical vertebrae is it is having a long neural spine which can be bifid. Okay, centrum is acellus. Okay, transverse processes are large. The transverse processes are large. Okay, these are the transverse processes you can see. These transverse are large. Vertebral canal is present. Vertebral canal is also known as foramen transverse area. Thoracic vertebrae, the centrum is acellus. Neural canal is formed by the union of two neural arches. The neural canal is formed by union of two neural arches in thoracic vertebrae. Neural spine is flat and long, directed backward. Club-shaped transverse process. Neural arch with superior articular facet. Okay, two demi facets for articulation of head of a rib. Okay, so there are two demi facets for the articulation of head of a rib. So thoracic vertebrae. These are the features of thoracic vertebrae. Okay. This is the superior articular facet. You can see superior articular facet, and these facets are for ribs. Okay. Lumbar vertebrae, centrum is acellus, neural spine well developed, transverse processes are thin and long. Small accessory process present near the root of each transverse process. It is the largest vertebrae. So lumbar vertebrae is the largest vertebrae. Okay. Lumbar vertebrae is the largest vertebrae. Sacrum, it is triangular bone formed by the fusion of five sacral vertebrae. Fusion normally begins between 16 to 18 years of age and is completed at 30 years of age. Serves as strong foundation for pelvic girdle, okay, hip bone. The sacrum with four pairs of anterior and posterior sacral foramina. Lateral part of the sacrum articulate with ilium of hip bone. Lateral part articulates with ilium of hip bone. Female sacrum is shorter, wider, and more curved between S2 and S3. The male sacrum is longer, narrower, and less curved. Female sacrum is wider and more curved between S2 and S3, while male sacrum is longer, narrow, and less curved. In birds, some of the vertebrae are fused to form synsacrum. Last thoracic vertebrae, lumbar vertebrae, sacral vertebrae, one or two caudal vertebrae. Okay. So in birds, some of the vertebrae are fused to form synsacrum. That is, it includes the last thoracic vertebrae, sacral vertebrae, one or two caudal vertebrae. Okay, along with lumbar vertebrae. Coccyx. It is formed by the fusion of four coccyx vertebrae. It is the last section of the backbone. It is small triangular bone. Two coccyx coronova project up to articulate with sacral coronova. Okay. Rudimentary transfer process rudimentary in coccyx. Fusion generally occurs between 20 to 30 years of age. 20 and 30 years of age. Okay. So different vertebrae. So in case of sacrum, five sacral vertebrae are fused to in adult, forming one structure called the sacrum, which lies between the bones of the pelvic girdle. Coccyx, the four coccyx vertebrae are fused to form curved or triangular bone and the coccyx. Okay. In females, the coccyx points inferiorly, but in males, it points anteriorly. It is considered as a vestigial tail. Okay. It is considered as a vestigial tail. Pointing inferiorly, नीचे की तरफ, and males pointing superiorly. So the vertebrae are cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacrum, and coccyx. Okay, C7, T12, L5, S is fused. Okay, and C is fused. Now comes the intervertebral disc. Intervertebral disc, they are basically present between the bodies of adjacent vertebrae. So I'll add a slide. Okay, so they are present between the bodies of adjacent vertebrae from second cervical vertebrae, that is axis, to the sacrum. The disc is having a outer fibrous ring consisting of fibrocartilage. Consisting of fibrocartilage and an inner soft and pulpy, highly elastic substance. Soft, pulpy, and highly elastic. Okay. The disc basically forms strong joints and it also helps to permeate different types of movements of vertebral column and absorbs vertical shock. Okay. The vertical formula is C7, T12, L5, S5, and C4. Okay. Curvatures. When we talk about the curvatures, one is the cervical curvature. We have already discussed thoracic curvature, lumbar curvature, and sacral curvature. Now, the main thing is that cervical curvature is in the neck region. It is convex. Okay. Thoracic, it is concave and both anteriorly. Lumbar curvature in the abdominal region. Convex, it is also anteriorly. Sacral curvature, it is concave. Okay, so these are the different curvatures. Okay. Functions of vertebral column. It protects the spinal cord. Second, it helps to carry the weight of the body. Body. The cervical vertebrae, especially the anterior cervical vertebrae, helps in the free movement of the head. Of head. The intervertebral or inner vertebral disc present in between the vertebrae give axial flexibility to the animal. Helps to provide flexibility. Okay. So these are the functions. It also helps to provide a strong support, as it act as a strong beam, okay, from which different visceral organs are suspended by mesenteries. Kyphosis, as exaggeration of thoracic curve resulting in rounded shouldered appearance, called also called humpback. Okay, it is basically exaggeration of thoracic curve. The thoracic curve becomes more prominent, okay, resulting in a rounded shouldered, the shoulder goes round appearance, and also called humpback. Okay, thoracic curve, very important. Kyphosis involves exaggeration of thoracic curve. Lordosis, it is the exaggeration of lumbar curve, okay, prominency of lumbar curve, okay, also known as sway back. Scoliosis, abnormal lateral curvature in any region of spine, okay. So it is like this lateral curvature, okay. It is like exaggeration of lumbar curvature, okay, lumbar curvature, okay. Kyphosis is thoracic curvature, exaggeration of thoracic curvature, okay. Lordosis is exaggeration of lumbar curvature, and scoliosis is lateral curvature. The vestigial notochord called nucleus pulposus is found in the intervertebral disc. Okay, very important, very important. The vestigial notochord is known as what? Nucleus pulposus. Vestigial notochord is known as nucleus pulposus. Is found in intervertebral disc. The intervertebral disc is fibrocartilaginous. Fibrocartilaginous. It is fibrocartilaginous. Okay, present between centrum of the vertebrae. Intervertebral disc is fibrocartilaginous in nature. Okay. The lordosis, kyphosis, and scoliosis is clear. Curvatures are clear. Okay. I have already explained the different types of vertebrae. Okay, especially their anatomies. Now we will talk about the thoracic basket, that is ribs. Okay, ribs are basically curved bars which movably articulate with the thoracic vertebrae at the back. Okay, thoracic vertebrae at the back while with the sternum in the front. So ribs join anteriorly to sternum and posteriorly to thoracic vertebrae. And they form a bony cage known as what? Thoracic basket or thoracic cage. 12 pairs of ribs. The upper 7 pairs of ribs are attached in front directly to the sternum by hyaline cartilage. By hyaline cartilage. Okay. So 7 pair of ribs, they are attached to the sternum by hyaline cartilage. They are called true ribs. True ribs. The next 3 pairs of ribs are having costal cartilage attached indirectly to the sternum. They are called false ribs. Okay. So next 3 pair of ribs are basically they are attached to the costal cartilage attached indirectly to the sternum. They are called false ribs. The lower 2 pair of ribs are free in front. They are known as what? Floating ribs. The 10th rib is also usually floating in Japanese and some other people. Okay. So the most important thing what you have to remember, that ribs, they attach to the sternum anteriorly, okay, and posteriorly to the thoracic vertebrae. The upper 7 pair of ribs are true ribs because they are basically attached to the sternum with the help of hyaline cartilage. The next 3 pair of ribs, they are having costochondral cartilage, okay, which attaches indirectly to the sternum. They are known as what? False ribs. The lower 2 pair of ribs are free in front and they are known as what? Floating ribs. 10th rib is always floating, okay, in Japanese and some other people. Is it clear? So true ribs, okay, they basically have vertebrosternal. They are known as what? Vertebrosternal ribs. Okay, 1 to 7. Okay, the first rib, it articulates with the manubrium, which is the superior most part of the sternum. Okay, that is why the rib, it consists of two parts. One is the vertebral part which attaches to the thoracic vertebrae, and the second is the sternal part which attaches to the sternum. The vertebral part is long and bony. It articulates with the thoracic vertebrae by two facets, the capitulum and tuberculum. Okay. Ribs of mammals and birds are bicephalous. Very important. They are bicephalous. In the first 9 ribs and by a single facet, the head in the remaining vertebrae. The sternal part is short and cartilaginous. It articulates with the sternum or sternal part of its upper rib. Ribs of mammal and birds are bicephalous in the first 9 ribs and by a single facet, okay, in the last. The head in the remaining vertebrae, okay. The sternal part is short and cartilaginous. The sternal part is short and cartilaginous, and it articulates with the sternum or sternal part of the upper rib. The first rib attaches to the manubrium, articulates with manubrium. Second to sixth vertebrae, sixth rib, sorry, articulates with mesosternum, mesosternum, and the seventh, it articulates partially with mesosternum and xiphoid process, the last part or the tail of sternum. Okay, the eighth, ninth, and tenth, they are vertebrochondral ribs. Okay, these are all these first to seven, they are vertebrosternal ribs. Vertebrosternal ribs. Okay, vertebrosternal ribs. 8, 9, 10 are vertebrochondral ribs, right? Because they have a cartilage which is attached to the sternum. Okay, vertebrochondral rib. They don't have sternal part. It articulates with the costal cartilage of seventh rib. Articulates with costal cartilage of seventh rib. And 11th and 12th are floating ribs. They are basically not attached to the sternum. Okay. Human thorax is wider from side to side then from front to back. This is an adaptation for the upright posture of the body. It helps to maintain equilibrium, very important in birds. Uncinate process is present in the ribs for muscles attachment, very important. Human thorax is wider from side to side, then from front to back. This is an adaptation for the upright posture of the body. It helps to maintain equilibrium. In birds, an uncinate process is present in the ribs for muscular attachment. Okay. There is a name given to 13th pair of rib, which is known as what? Gorilla rib. Okay, if you will watch the diagram of a rib, it will be like this. This is head, shaft, and this is costal cartilage. Okay. This is the articular facet. It is having two articular, points of facet. That is why it is known as what? Bicephalic. Okay. This part is known as what? Vertebral. And this part is known as what? Sternum. Sternum is also known as breastbone. Okay. It is dagger shaped bone, or it is a single bone, but it is dagger shaped bone. Okay. Dagger shaped. Single. Function of ribs. The ribs serve as three important functions. They protect the heart, large blood vessels, and lungs. So protection is the most important function. They protect the heart, lungs, and large blood vessels. They have respiratory muscles. They bear respiratory muscles, external intercostal muscles for the expansion of lungs during inspiration and expiration. They have two pair of ribs. The last two pair of ribs, they protect the kidney. 11th and 12th ribs, they protect the kidney. Okay. This is the structure which is given. Okay. The cartilages, costal cartilages, floating ribs. You can see the floating ribs, 11th and 12th. Okay. 12th thoracic vertebrae. Floating ribs not attached to the sternum, not attached to the sternum. Okay. This is the sternum. This part. This is the part known as what? Sternum. Now you can see the manubrium. This is manubrium. Okay. The last part, tail, is known as what? Xiphoid process. Okay. And this is the body. Sternum. It is a bone of chest, absent in fish and turtle. Absent in fish and turtle. It is absent in fish and turtle. Associated with pectoral girdles in amphibia. In amphibia, if it is present, it is associated with pectoral girdles. In man, it is made up of cervical manubrium, presternum, mesosternum, and xiphoid process of post or metasternum. Okay. In male, it is nearly 17 centimeter long. Manubrium is broad and thick. Mesosternum is made up of fine sternae. Metasternum is present the xiphisternum, which is the smallest, broad and thin part. In mammal, a cartilaginous plate attached to the xiphisternum known as xiphoid cartilage, which is the hyaline cartilage. Okay. Sternum is equal to manubrium plus 5 sternae plus xiphisternum. This is manubrium. This is the first costal. This is the first costal notch. Okay. This is the second costal notch, third costal notch, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. So 1 to 7 they attaches like this. Okay. The ribs. This is the xiphoid process. This is manubrium, which is presternum, mesosternum, and metasternum. Okay. Metasternum. It takes part in the formation of protective thoracic cage or thoracic basket. It plays role in the respiratory mechanism. Okay. So these are the functions of. So I will be starting the appendicular skeleton from the next turn. Okay. Please go through this lecture. It's a very important lecture and there are so many terms you have to remember. We have completed the axial skeleton, which includes the skull, which includes the, sternum, ribs, thoracic cage we have covered. Okay. Bones of face, we have, I mean, I have just given the names, okay? Now, I will be starting the appendicular skeleton in the coming turn, next turn. Till then, bye bye. Take care. Stay safe. Stay healthy.